We are medicated, sedated, and just completely taken away from our purpose in life. And that means the pain that we go through life as well. Life is not easy. Life is extremely difficult. But when we walk along with Christ and we allow him in those moments of our life, the game changes. Hello, and welcome to Forged. I am your host, Tracey Martin. Sitting in this chair has given me a lot of reflective moments on why I do what I do. I have done other shows, I have done other podcasts, but I believe that this is on my heart in this time and this moment now to deliver this message. So I want to give you a little context on what exactly Forged is. If you were to Google that name, you might see anvils and welding and fire and steel. And I want you to keep all those little, ideas in your mind because that's really what I'm going for. But I want to talk about the human spirit and the human process of being forged. And I think the best way to do this and explain this might be to tell you. So I have the amazing team. They're small, but they're mighty. And we had this conversation about, hey, T, what are you going for? What do you want this to come out like? And I said, I want it to be lessons and I want it to be realizing that we are forged through the fires of life. So I went to the oldest book, the Bible, and I dug up the story of Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, which is the book of Daniel, chapter 3. And I want to dive into this from this perspective. So, just to give you a little context, if you don't know the story, I encourage you to read it, but I'm going to give you a little bit here. So, these are three Jewish men who were in the time and in the era of the king Nebuchadnezzar, and not a good dude, as we know. So, he basically created these false idols, and everyone was to worship them whenever certain music played. And these three guys, there was no way they were going to comply. There was no way they were going to forsake their own one true God. And so they ended up causing a lot of trouble, let's just say. And Nebuchadnezzar said, okay, I'm going to throw you into the fire. And it was a really, really, like probably hotter, he said, 7 times than it's ever been before. And these three guys, they had these crazy officers and soldiers that said, we're going to tie these guys up and throw them in the fiery furnace because they will not comply and bow down to this other king. So they throw them in there. And all of a sudden, Nebuchadnezzar says, wait a minute, there's 4 figures in this fire. And he was kind of really taken aback and they were unbound. And so what happened? God was in the fire with them. They were walking in the fire with Christ. Isn't that really what we need to do in every aspect of our life is bring Christ into our fire of life and then knowing they stepped out without being burned. And I want to share that story with you because part of the context of this show is really understanding that we are today, in today's world, we are medicated, sedated, and just completely taken away from our purpose in life. And that means the pain that we go through life as well. And as a coach of almost 30 years, I can tell you, this is the number one thing that I see that we are taking ourselves farther away from the grit and the resiliency of navigating life. Life is not easy. Life is extremely difficult. But when we walk along with Christ and we allow him in those moments of our life, the game changes. And that's what I want you to understand. I want you to take away from this particular podcast and what we're going to build in the future and the people that we're going to have on because they have such amazing stories. And by the way, this message of being forged through the fire is not just for an athlete or someone who is building an incredible business. It is for the everyday person who navigates the world in 2024. Because I don't know about you guys, but for the last 4 years, I have been in triage as a coach with taking on every client and every family that came to my door to be in service. And I've seen quite a bit and I've coached quite a bit. And I can tell you, this is the number one thing that I want to focus on is getting people through those fires of life and knowing and equipping them with the confidence that they have to do this. And for me, I believe it's Christ. I believe that when you realize you're not in this together and you're created on purpose for a purpose, it's kind of like one of my young clients said to me, T, I finally realized that I'm part of this. I was put here to create something and to be somebody. It's like you're a small puzzle piece in this, and no one else can fit but you. And imagine if you knew that going through difficult moments. Imagine if you had parents that raised you in such a way that you were put here on purpose, and we're going to navigate life together, and we're going to figure this out. And we're going to get to a place and to a point of realizing that these trials that you go through, they're meant to grow you. They're not meant to take you out. They're not meant to debilitate you. But I can tell you right now, you will not be the same person when you get through these. And that's why I wanted to use that image of Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego going through the fire with Christ and realizing that they didn't get burned, but they went through one heck of an experience. And on the other side, they know now who they truly are and whose they truly are. So we've forgotten, I believe, how to feel, how to actually go through difficult moments, how to actually navigate this world. Because let's face it, life's been pretty easy for a very long time for many generations. And we haven't had to go through a lot of trials in the big sense of the word. Yes, we have illnesses, we have losses and disappointments. We do have all of those. And either if you're disappointed, it doesn't mean that you have to be discouraged, because discouragement is a choice, by the way. And I know that may sound crazy and annoying, because the last thing you want to do is to pull yourself out. You want to remain a victim, because then you don't have to change. You don't have to accept any kind of accountability. And that's why this story is so important to me, and why the name Forged is really important for this particular podcast, is because I don't know who we would be if we weren't allowed to actually feel. It takes 90 seconds for an emotion to go through the body. And that's if it's allowed to go through the body. If it's blocked, or if someone else tries to interrupt it, that's where we get stuck. So think back to when maybe you might have had a difficult time, or you might have gone through something that was very uncomfortable. Because to speak to that, we have a comfort crisis in this world. We're very comfortable. Everybody is so focused on the things that they want in the materialistic part, and we live our life through social media lens, that we haven't really figured out we have to actually build and create. We may have to go to battle. Who are you going to battle with? Whether it's your family and your friends, or whether it's Christ by your side. Either way, it's a choice. And so in this podcast, I want you to find yourself. When we have these conversations with incredible people, I want you to know and to see that you may go through something. And I pray to God that you do, because I don't want to ever save you from that. Because typical modalities of therapy and counseling and that, they save you from the very opportunity that you have to grow, or they medicate you through it because you don't want to feel bad. And as a coach, I can tell you, you may not feel good all the time, but you have to feel all the time. And so imagine thinking back to those three gentlemen going through this fire. They were not going to compromise. They were not going to bend. How many times have we seen that over the years of people compromising or bending or not standing or not taking an affirmative stand and allowing to be pushed around? This is where we're going to have these conversations. We're going to have these difficult conversations. And the people that I am so blessed to bring with me and to introduce to you, I think it's going to be an interesting dialogue and a journey, because these are everyday people, just like all of us. These are not anyone special. They're special to me, but they're not anyone that's any different than you are. They're navigating life. They maybe have loss in family. They maybe have health crisis. They maybe be going through something that are completely disappointed. But we've forgotten that we need to feel those disappointments. I mean, it's like if you have a young child and they didn't get the ice cream, you want to just make sure that they have it, right? You don't want them to feel that disappointment. That's what we have to feel. And that's why I brought that reference up of 90 seconds and emotion moves through the body. But we stop it. We don't want to feel it. So disappointment is a really good thing, because it teaches us to navigate and to be in the neutral, I think is the best thing to say. But being discouraged is a choice. Deciding how you're going to go through this is a choice. Life is full of fires. And I know this may sound counterintuitive to you, but I pray for some of the difficulties in life, because it's an opportunity to do different, to grow, to meet and rise above those things. And this is not by any means a diluted conversation, because we have to have these conversations based upon what our world looks like now and who knows where we're going. We have seen a complete shift in human behavior and culture. And by the way, culture is really strong. And it can take young people and it can take older people and it take every one of us and pull us into this darkness. I want to make sure that you have the equipment and the mental fortitude to pull yourself out of that. And I hope that makes sense to you. And I hope it resonates with you to where you can kind of come to a place of realizing that these things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you. And that may be a hard concept to grasp if you've never really heard the language. And that's what I find more often than not is a lot of my young people that I work with in families, no one ever told them. No one ever said you can't do this, you should do this. This is right or this is wrong, this is moral or this is ethical. And so we're navigating that right now, younger generations. And if you think about the disarmament that's happening through technology, we're not going to end up in a really good place if we don't get back to our neutral, get back to our knowing of who we are, and get back to our truth. And the context of this particular story, and I encourage you, if you haven't read it, read it. The book of Daniel, chapter 3. Read it because it gives you a sense of understanding that you will be tested, you will be challenged, and you will be put in an area that you may have to rise above and actually answer the call of greatness. Can you do it? Do you have what it takes? Because I think we all do. I just think that we've been detached from that. So if we can find a connection back to the strength and the resiliency of the human spirit, it's a game changer. And you can apply this to any level of life. I don't care if you're a young person trying to get into college. I'd encourage you not to go to college, but that's another story. But if you get to the point of realizing that I'm going to go through difficulties and I need to navigate my way through them, but nobody showed you how. Everyone rises and falls back into the victim mindset because it's easier, it's comfortable. We know what to expect. But who would you be on the other side of that fire? That's what I want you to think about. That's what I want you to tap into because that's where you are going to rise and be the person that God's created you to be. You are here on purpose. Every single one of us is. But if you listen to the world, you're just some blob taking up space. That's not true. You've been lied to. Every single person is here for a purpose. And only you can fill that. Only I can fill the purpose that God has on my heart. And by the way, I don't need anyone's permission to walk that out. And I encourage you the same thing. Stand convicted because those that are closest to you sometimes will support you the least. Seek people who understand what you're going through and can actually help you, mentor and coach you and navigate you through this difficult time. Because I'm not going to lie to you, you are going to deal with a lot of things coming up in the future on however you want to build your life. You can either go one way, which is the world's way, or you can sit there and think, well, maybe I can actually grow through this adversity. Adversity is not a negative word. So if you go back and look at this story and you really start to think about your life and what you've navigated and the difficulties and put them into perspective and realize if you don't have the skills and tools, go get them. I pray that this podcast will bless you with some of those skills and tools and some of those dialogues and conversations that will get you to the other side because it takes time. And I want to tell you this particular, and not that applies to just men, but this is really where we are in this world. And this is a great quote. And I want to get this to you because I want you to think about what does this mean? Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. I think this is where we are. We've been too comfortable. We've been detached from difficulties in navigating life's and disappointments and adversities to where everything is supposed to be sunshine and roses. That's not life. That's not reality. And that's not going to get you to where you need to be to fulfill the purpose that God has created you to be. You will come up against challenges and obstacles. That's okay. Those are all opportunities to do differently. If I can tell you a backstory of myself, and I will get into that in future shows, but if I would have stayed stuck in those areas of what I perceived that I was a victim, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be a mother. I wouldn't be a grandmother. I wouldn't be a coach, a designer, an author, none of those things that God has given me the skills and tools. This isn't me, this is him. So if I were to stay there, I can't imagine not fulfilling all the things that he has for me. So if Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego would have Listen to Nebuchadnezzar. They would have not been convicted in their faith, and God would not have blessed them. Because God asks two things, right? He asks us to obey, and he blesses faith. If you move forward in faith through adversity and know that you've got God with you and the strength with you, you come out the other side a much better person. So I want to leave you with this one particular Bible verse, which is very important to me. And it's number 1 Corinthians 15:10. But by the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace, which was bestowed upon me, was not in vain, but I labored more than they all. Yet not I, but the grace of God, which was with me. We aren't here by accident. Your strengths and your obstacles and your adversities are not by accident. Embrace them and realize that you are not alone. You are here for a purpose, and you are here to raise through greatness to figure out what your purpose is. So I hope that you enjoy the podcast moving forward. Please let us know any comments that you have. Let us know if there's things that you want us, people you want us to have on that have incredible stories. I want this platform to be for every single person that has a story that has risen above, because we all are going to sometime, at some point in time, navigate this. And are we ready and are we equipped? Thank you so much. And I want to leave you with my last Bible verse, which is my favorite, which is 2 Timothy 1:7. For God did not give us the spirit of fear, right? But of power and of love and of sound mind. And today, the mind is the battlefield. Protect it with the word. Thank you so much for listening, and I can't wait to see you at the next episode.